aircraft thingies. And they're looking at these planes going, what can we do with them? What use are they in the battlefield?
Yeah.
And they came to the conclusion, right, the best thing they could actually do with them is have them fly over the enemy troops and then take a note of where the troop movements are and land and then sort of get back into the base and say, right, they've got X amount of tanks here and X amount of, that's where the trenches go and they've moved troops from here to here. It was only by World War II or later on they decided, oh, hang on, we could put bombs on here. And, so they had to change all the tactics. It was sort of interesting times, and now we just take that for granted that there's jet travel and that you can fly across the Atlantic in a day and all these types of things.
But I mean, the only thing that I'll end with personally is that I remember my first. I remember a couple of wow moments when I was on my computers, which now look so primitive. And you look at technology today, and there's certain things that impress us when we see them. And I remember at the time in the 80s, I think it was the Dragon's Lair arcade when I first saw that, which was effectively a laserdisc with a joystick attached to it. And I remember seeing that at the time and thinking, wow, computer games cannot get any better than this. And then you get moments throughout your computing history where you get these times where you think, no, it can't get any better than this. There's no way they can take this any further. And ultimately you're surprised. And looking back from what we use now, especially with the Linux desktop and what we're doing and having 6 or 7 tasks running at the same time, I mean, these things weren't even dreamt of when we were plugging away, entering code from a book because we bought an off-the-shelf magazine where the only game available was where you typed it in from code from scratch in BASIC.
And then loading games from tape.
And guaranteed, yes, and saving them to tape, which was a joy as well, especially when it didn't work. But I think in 20 years' time,
loading Gauntlet, where it's like no one breathe on the cassette.
Yeah, and it was multi-load as well, if I remember rightly. If I remember correctly, on the Spectrum, it was multi-load Gauntlet, where you had to load every 3 levels in or something. It was something like that.
Don't breathe on it.
But I mean, I think in 20 years' time, we'll look back at this time and laugh our socks off at how primitive we were and how primitive the computing systems were. The one thing I'd just like to ask at the end, just to see what Roy and Gordon, your view is on this, and this is touchscreen technology, but only in respect of the desktop. Now, my view on this, and I've looked at these touchscreen monitors, I don't think we're ready or will ever be ready for a move if one is using the traditional desktop, sitting at a keyboard, etc. I don't think we're ready to move on to this touchscreen technology. I find it very uncomfortable if I was to stretch over and touch my monitor every time I wanted to access something. I feel very comfortable with the mouse and keyboard. Have I been used to this over the years? And that's probably where this opinion comes from. I don't know, but I just can't see anything removing the traditional keyboard and monitor and mouse combination that we have on the desktop.
I can see one possible evolution here, and just in case people want to try and patent it, this is prior art, people. This is prior art. Feel free to make it, just don't proprietarize it. Make it free software. I don't care license. Make it FSF approved. The idea is, and I hate doing this. I'm an ideas guy, right? The idea is just having like 2 screens. So you've got it's like a laptop essentially, and the keyboard is another touch screen, and you can press a button and it becomes a regular keyboard, and it's touch sensitive, and you can maybe set it for different things. One might be a QWERTY keyboard, might be a Devaric keyboard. Just whatever, at the press of a button, you can change the layout of the touch screen like an application, but it's actually a keyboard. And it's flat as well, where you would regularly have a keyboard. So it's still like a laptop, but it's basically 2 screens rather than a screen.
That's what's one of the prototypes of the one laptop per child.
Oh, you're kidding! Someone else has invented it. Typical.
No, I think people thought about a hybrid, something that changes between being a keyboard and being an extra screen. Especially if you want to have a non-screen keyboard. But the really difficult thing about these keyboards is tactile, is it called? The actual ability to type with feeling the keyboard, to get some feedback. It's really important, and there is lots of research into the design. You now see as the keyboards we have, if you look at the springs underneath and the way they respond to the key presses, that goes back to research many, many years ago when they found what's going to work best for the person clicking the click. Because you have to, well, if you're not a fast typer, I suppose it's not going to be a major thing for. Even if you want to reduce the frequency of typos, it's really, really important to design these things correctly. One of the things, though, is he mentioned the touch screens actually go back to the 80s and something like that. The issues with, as far as I can tell, is if you try using, if you thought that the touch screen, and I did actually go to a shop and try this for a while. If you think it's quite boring and uncomfortable, try doing this for a whole day, and then compare actually using the mouse. I mean, one of the reasons you have the mouse on the desk is so you can put your hand on the desk all day. Unless you get even Microsoft's idea of Surface is not going to work too well because you have to kind of bend over to something to actually use the thing, and it's going to hurt your back. So the only way I can think of using comfortably a computer of this type is having some sort of a bed, like a massage bed or something, and actually having a computer underneath you, and you put in the hands basically, kind of stretching down and using the computer from above. That's just going to be too strange.
Yeah, there's one thing. I mean, when it deals with touch, I mean, you're right. When you're talking about putting your hands and bending your wrists back and touching a screen that's maybe not quite vertical but close to it, then that's, as you say, that's going to be awkward for doing that all day. So the other idea of, right, you could put it pretty much flat and use it flat. But the thing is, I'm not translucent. I don't know about anyone else, but my body is not translucent, and you can't see through me. So when I've got my hand on top of a screen, I can't see what's underneath my hands, what's underneath where my fingers are. That's something that's always going to be a problem.
This is why they make the buttons bigger. Even when you try to increase and to improve the resolution, they go backwards now with Ubuntu. You know what they try and do with Unity and things like that. They try to make the things kind of finger-friendly or multi-touch friendly. What it means they do is they make it more like Fisher-Price in some sense. And it's not going to be very useful to a person who's trying to be productive with things like Photoshop or probably should say GIMP or whatever. Trying to do a daily job with a program like Photoshop or AutoCAD, where everything has to be pixel perfect and very sensitive. So if you start to work with your fingers and you don't have the sensitivity and the ability to attach your hand to a surface to get some calibration or something, it's going to be really hard to get things done, even if you play a game. And one thing I think about is, do you know those games that used to work with kind of you basically have a mirror in front of a screen and you have to shoot some, hold up a gun made of plastic and shoot those lasers down at the bad guys or whatever.
Virtual Cops.
Or Duck Hunts on the end.
There are various types of them. But those where you actually have to hold up the gun and to reload and things, it's really, really tiring. Try to play this for an hour. I mean, just having your hands straight, just keeping your head straight, even two hands straight, kind of supporting, one hand supports the other. When I was a kid, after about, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I'd get quite tired just holding my hands up.
You think that's bad? You remember the bazooka thing for the SNES?
Oh yes.
I'm maybe digressing a bit. I was in Comet when that was released, and I got invited to the launch party in Edinburgh for the various things for the SNES, and that was one of them. And they had one of the demonstration areas. They had 3 or 4 of these bazooka things set up. They had Nintendo reps there that were trying to get you to play on these things, and unfortunately for them, because this relies on line of sight towards the TV, where did they choose to set it up? In the foyer, where you had to walk through the area, the line of sight, to get from the toilets and the bar and that to the main area, numpties. But yeah, I mean, having this thing sitting on your shoulder aimed at the TV, that's even worse than having a pistol-shaped thing in your hand. Anyway, I digress.
Well,
brought back memories.
What we'll do before we go into any more of our distant pasts, we'll move on to a news topic that's current today. Roy, I don't know if you would like to introduce this because you've been reading about it, but the Microsoft and its recent action, its complaint against Google. I don't know if you want to go into.
Yeah. I've been trying to. I've spent several weeks now trying to catch up with several news to do with Microsoft, because recently the way I've been working around Microsoft News was I try to catch up once in a few months and see what's been happening, and especially if something pretty important has happened. And only today I found out practically what the whole fight between Google and Microsoft is about and what's going on, and especially Groklo has been covering it